In this session, we're going to go over shapes and lines, how to search for shapes and lines, how to place them on our workspace, and the tools that are available for shapes and lines. Now, if I go over to the Elements section, as we noted before, we have a search box, and we also have a section where shapes are. So you could select See All to look for a shape to use. You can also go back and search for, let's say, for example, a circle. And under the section for shapes, you will see the different circle shapes. I'm going to select this circle and place it on my workspace. And I'll place it right there. I'll press the X to close this left panel. Now you're going to notice that my toolbar has changed slightly from the options that were available for my text box. Let's review the options that are available. So on my left, we're going to notice an icon called Shape. Now, no matter what shape you place on your workspace, you can always come up to this icon and change the shape to something else. You'll notice on my right side, a panel opens up with all the shapes that are available. Now, these are vector shapes, and you can change this shape to any one of these shapes. So I'll change it to this shape right here. I'll close the side panel and go back to my desktop. You'll notice that when I select my background, that menu changes again. And as I said previously, the toolbar will change every time that you select a different element. And the background is also an element. I'm going to click that shape again so we can continue going through the options on the toolbar that are available for the shape. Next to the shape is color. We can change the color of the shape just like we changed the color for text. But you're going to notice, in addition to document colors, brand colors, our default colors, we also have something called gradients. These are combinations of colors that go together. Now, it doesn't stop here. Just because there are colors on this panel, it doesn't mean that you couldn't add a color simply by coming up to the plus sign and adding your own custom color. When we select the plus icon, you're going to notice that we have two options. We have solid color and we have gradient. Like text, we can move this circle selector over to change the color. We can also use the eyedropper to select a color if there were more colors on this workspace. Or you could copy and paste a color code right in this section here. If we go over to gradient, we're going to notice that we have, or we're able to add different colors in here to create our own custom gradients. I'm going to go ahead and add another color just so that you can see how that works. And I'm going to bring that slider all the way to the yellow. And I'll bring it here. I'll click in the white space to close that box. Now we'll notice that we have the 3 colors here in the order that we see them on the shape. We have that light pink, we have the purple, and we have the gray. But we're also able to move them. So I could move this gray one over in between the pink and the purple. Did you notice how it changed the color of the shape? Now if we go back over to the right side, there are different styles too. We can apply any one of these styles to the shape. So that's what that circular style looks like. That's what that style looks like. And so on and so on. Let's go ahead and place an image on our workspace. I'll come down to Photos, and I'm going to select a photo. I'll just make this a little bit smaller and bring it over here. I'm going to go back into colors, and I want you to pay attention and see that now Canva has pulled the colors in the photo and placed them in our color panel. So if we wanted to try and match the color of a shape to a photo, we can now do that. So this is a really cool feature and handy for you to use when you are designing. I'm going to create another page. And I'm going to place another shape on my workspace. I'll place a square on my workspace. Now you'll notice that my square has these circles in the corners where you're able to resize the shape. We also have handles on the side where we're able to resize or make that shape wider or less wider. If we grab it, we can move it. We note that when we move it, we get guides showing up telling us whether that shape is aligned on the page or not. That's what those purple lines mean. Now, in addition to being able to choose a color for the shape, we're also able to make it transparent. So that shape is still there, but it is transparent. If we look over to the right, we'll notice that there is an icon with lines. This allows us to place a border around that shape. Now we can select from a solid border, a dashed border, dashed with smaller intermittent dashes, and a dotted border. And we're also able to change the weight of that border to make it thinner or thicker. Of course, you can also go into this little box and change it by keying in a number for the pixel size of that border weight. I'll change it back to solid. Next to borders, we'll notice a curved shape. This is for corner rounding. When we select corner rounding, we're able to select how round we want the corner. So as we toggle this slider to the left, we're able to make the corners more round. And if you want them square, then you would bring that slider all the way down to the left. Next to the corner rounding is a box where the font will be. And you're probably asking yourself, why is there an option for a font? And that's because we can actually type inside shapes. That's what makes them different in one way from shapes that are actually either graphic shapes or image shapes. In this shape, I'm going to type rectangle. So the text rectangle, when we look at the font that's being used for the text is DM Sans. If we click in the font box up here in the toolbar, our right panel will open up where you get to choose a different font. Now you can also make that font larger like you could with text. You can change the font color. Now, if we were able to make this font bold or italics, the option would be available here, but this font does not have that option. The alignment of the text is currently center, and we can change that as well. We can change the numbering to bullet or numbered. We can also change the spacing. Now, in addition to letter spacing and line spacing, we also have available the option to determine the padding inside the square. And right now it's set at 4. If I decrease the padding, you won't notice a difference right now. That's because the text is centered. But if we come back up to alignment, right now it's left aligned, and we go back to spacing, and I increase the padding, you're going to notice that the text has space in between that left line and the R. There's also an option for vertical alignment, and right now it's set at center. If we wanted that text to be placed right at the top of that shape, then I could change the vertical alignment to top, and that will move it all the way to the top. In the same manner, I could also change it to bottom, and it will appear at the bottom. And then as I continue typing, it will move up. Next to alignment is transparency. And you guessed it, transparency will make that element less opaque. So as I toggle the transparency down, it makes it lighter in color. And it will change the text as well as the shape. I'll bring the transparency back up. Next to transparency, we have animate. I'm going to duplicate this rectangle 2 times. And I'll just name the first rectangle 1, the second rectangle 2, and the third rectangle 3. I'm going to click on Animate. Now, Animate will look very similar to the Animate that we saw under Text. The only thing that you won't see here is text animation, because right now we have selected a shape. So that option to animate text is not available. We can, though, combine motion effects with basic animation effects. I'm going to select a basic animation for this rectangle. And I'll leave the options like this. I'll select the first rectangle and I'll select another animation. And again, I'll just leave the default settings. I'm going to close this box. Now, when we go back to our workspace, we'll notice that if we've applied an animation to an element, it will be reflected in the toolbar. So for rectangle 1, I've got pop selected as an animation. For rectangle 3, I've got rise selected for an animation. When you're working with animations, it's very important to be aware of the timing of those animations when they appear on your slide and how long they're going to be appearing on your slide. To show the timing of those elements, just click on one of the elements on your workspace, go to the floating toolbar to the 3 dots, and look for the Show Timing option. When you click on Show Timing, that will pop up the slide that you're working on with the elements that are on your workspace. If you don't see this area, just toggle on Scroll View or Thumbnail View, and you will see that option. I'm going to get into that a little later on. For now, I'm just going to turn off the timing and I'm going to go back to Scroll View. I'm going to select everything on my page and I'm going to go to Position. Just like text, we can arrange the elements on our workspace to make them look more tidy, to shift them to the left, to the right, to the center, to the middle, what have you. I've got these 3 rectangles selected. I'm going to tidy them up so that they are evenly spaced amongst one another. Now, if I go to the Layers tab, we'll see that all 3 elements are reflected there. And I don't have to worry about them overlapping one with another because clearly they are placed far from one another that I can very easily select any of them. I'm going to add another page. Let's take a look at lines. So I still have my left panel open up. So I'm just going to go to See All, and I'm going to add a line to my workspace. It doesn't matter which line I put on my workspace because I can very easily change this line. It just doesn't matter. And again, you can resize that line by just clicking on the end and making it bigger or wider. To change the color, I can just go up to this circle with the color, and that will open up my right panel where I'm able to change the color of my line, just like I did my shape. You'll notice at the bottom that I'll have the option to change all of my lines from black to red. Next to color, I'm going to have lines. Now I can change that solid line to a dashed line. I can make it a closer, smaller dashed, or a dotted. And I can also change the line weight. And I also have the option to round the end points. So if I place it back to solid and I make it thicker, right now it's square, but if I select it and go back, I can round the end of the lines. Next to the line type, I can change the line start and the line end. I could change it to any one of these options. And the same with the line end. I also have the option to indicate or use a straight line, an elbow, or a curved line. I'm going to place another line on my workspace. And I'll bring that up here. And I'll make it larger. I'm going to go into line type and I'll select the elbow. Now you'll notice that there'll be a handle in the middle, and I can move that handle and add corners. I'm going to make a duplicate of this line and place it down here. If I go back into line type, I can choose curved, and this will allow me to make a curved line instead of a line with elbows. I have the option to make the line transparent or more opaque. I have the option to animate, just like I did a shape. I can go to position layers. I can copy the style like I can a shape. And there's also that double arrow that will open up my right panel for more options. If there are more options available, they will be in your right panel here. For lines, there doesn't appear to be any other options available though. Now with lines, you also have the option to choose a gradient. You can add a color and you can also create your own gradient. Let's add another page. I'm going to place a square on my workspace and I'll just place that right up top there. Let's click on the More option on the floating menu. You'll notice at the bottom, there'll be another option, something new, called Enable Quick Flow. When we click that option, you're going to notice arrows on either side of the square. When you click on the arrow, it's going to show you where it's going to place that new shape. And what this does is it will automatically create a shape in the direction of that arrow. So when we're clicking the arrow, it will show us where it's going to position the new shape. And if there is a shape already in that direction, it will show you the next best place where it's going to place it. And so on, and so on, and so on. Let's go back up to lines and let's take a look and see whether there are any new options available in that floating menu. So there really isn't anything new here that we haven't already seen. Let's go back to the floating menu and talk about timing. So let's click on the three dots and let's scroll all the way down to where it says Show Timing. Let's talk more about timing of elements. Now, show timing isn't just available for shapes. It's available for any element that you're placing on your workspace, including text. And what show timing does is it helps you to see when an element is going to appear in a presentation and adjust the timing of that element. Now, I know this sounds confusing, and really this only applies if you're creating an animation or a presentation. This is more of an advanced feature. But if we click on Show Timing, we'll see a pop-up that comes up. Now, if I select all the elements on my page, all of those elements will be reflected just above the slide. Now I can adjust each of these to show at a certain time during my slide. So if I click the first one, I can crop it to end at 2.3 seconds. If I click on all the elements again, I can have the second one start after the first one. And if I click all the elements again, I can just crop that third one to appear later on. So as I adjust these elements, they're going to appear at different times during my presentation, and then they'll disappear. And again, you can do this for any element that's on your workspace. Now, if you're just creating a design, a regular design that you're going to download like a PNG or a JPEG, you don't need to worry about timing. Timing is really for presentations or designs that you are going to be downloading as MP4s. We'll get more into creating animations and videos later on.